The terrifying prospect that the next federal election, that can be held any time after August this year, but more likely will be held in early 2025, could result in a minority Labor government. Now, given the Albanese government currently has 77 seats in the House of Reps, only holds a one-seat majority, that result, a hung parliament or a minority government, is entirely possible. And with a by-election due within weeks in the Melbourne seat of Dunkley, Labor, if it loses that by-election, would be down to the bare minimum of 76 seats in the House of Reps. So why would a minority Labor government be a disaster, in my view, for our country? In a word, the Teals. The climate change-obsessed so-called independents who make up a large slab of the 18 crossbenchers currently sitting in the lower house. Now, if those inner-city climate preachers hang on to the seats they snatched off the Liberals last time, and Labor dips below the 76 seats needed to govern in their own right, it would be horse trading time. Albanese, like Julia Gillard before him, would have to convince a number of those 18 to support his government. Now, Julia Gillard had to do a deal with Tony Windsor, Bob Katter and Rob Oakeshott. It took weeks, not days, and it left the nation rudderless. It was dreadful. But I fear dealing with the Teals would be a whole lot more difficult. Some of them showed their hand today, according to a report in the Australian newspaper. Now, representing voters in some of the most affluent seats in the country, think about Bellevue Hill, Point Piper, Hawthorn, Kew, Brighton in Melbourne, the Teals are calling for Australia to set a target of emission reduction of 75% by 2035. That's 11 years away. It's not far. They want 50 or 60% reduction by 2030, or 6 years from now. Now, the current government has a legislated target of 43% by that date. Now, that's going to be hard enough to get to. But just think what would have to happen to reach these unachievable targets. What would we have to do to our economy, our mining industry, let alone agriculture? I mean, Teals like Monique Ryan in Kooyong, Kylie Tink in North Sydney, Allegra Spender in Sydney's eastern suburbs, and Zali Steggall on Sydney's northern beaches all believe that if they want to get elected again, they have to shout about global warming and climate change. Now, let's hope, though, that the voters that threw out politicians with world experience, like Josh Frydenberg and Tony Abbott, wake up to the fact that these economy-destroying, feel-good ambitions from the Teals is just going to make life tougher for ordinary Australians like you and me. The massive cost to rebuild our energy transmission system in just 6 years will drive energy costs through the roof, not the other way around. Manly and Kew won't be carpet-bombed with tens of thousands of acres of wind turbines and solar panels to produce renewable energy. No, that'll be in regional and rural Australia, out of sight, out of mind. Now, to get these targets in that time frame would require cuts in cattle production. Petrol and diesel cars and trucks would have to be slashed and replaced by EVs. Air travel prices would soar because we would have to cut the number of flights to reduce emissions from aircraft. And Teals don't talk about such inconvenient truths. Steggall today said, quote, Australia needs to increase its ambitions. It's time to take the lead on the national front. Spender in Ritzy Double Bay says, quote, voters want real climate action, not another decade of delay. So this is where we are headed, to the doomsday result of a wounded MP, Anthony Albanese, needing to horse trade with these climate change evangelists and being forced to promise unachievable targets that would only crucify the Australian economy. As poorly as this current government is travelling, and polling suggests they might even lose an election, it would be much better for all of us that one side or the other, Labor or the coalition, win in their own right. A Labor Teal or Labor Green coalition would be a nightmare for us all.